milestones. Gonna improve. Morning. Morning.
I have a question. Good, good. Thank you. Morning. You get logged in? I got here early to get logged in. Oh, you see it on there. Good. You see how it works.
Well, let me help you here.
Okay.
You
Okay.
set me up, change my password.
Oh, God. Thank you very much.
Here you go, it's a system reboot.
Let's try it, yeah.
Okay, so
It,
he called me out for having my badge upside down.
oh, yeah. Yes, I felt like, oh, wow.
It's a start.
But the start.
I know.
Well, and I'll show you.
He called me out for having my badge on upside down, so that wasn't good.
They all have little candy.
You can get whatever you want. You can get what David has, which is one that's just beside it. I like this one, and it has this. It's a black one.
I just carry keep that with me.
Oh, and Bethany will get it for you. What do you want?
I don't know.
Tom
I'll
needs
work on it.
Tom needs one of these or one like David's.
I'll get something.
Yeah, a holder. And and actually, I don't know if your skin is sensitive to metal, but the chain that was on mine originally is in my neck right now. So the fabric's and those
Send
additional,
these,
yeah.
okay.
I'll call this meeting to order. Last week was National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, and we're honored to have two representatives of those first responders here today to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in standing. We have Dispatcher Jamie Detterden. Is that right? Dettering, sorry. Dettering. I'm sorry, Jamie. And call taker Ann Casey. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for leading us and for all your work. And now, Chaplain Johnny Jones is going to lead us in prayer.
Bowed heads in honor to our Heavenly Father. Our Heavenly Father who resides outside our universe. We come to give you honor and to thanks for this day. We're asking that, Lord, that you would bless our nation, that you would bless not only our nation, but you would bless each and every state individually, every city individually and collectively. We thank you for these leaders to which you have chosen by your will that they would lead us. But we pray, Lord, that they would lead with integrity and that every decision that is made, that it will be made by your will and through your will, that our city may become the greatest city in America. But not only do we pray for our city, but we pray for every city. We pray for our mayor. We pray for our city councilman. We pray for our commissioner board. We pray for our policemen. We pray for our community. And Lord, we give it all over to you. Thank you, Lord, for this meeting. Now, Lord, as they go and they proceed, let every decision that they make be made with integrity. Let every choice that has been made, let them honor you, Lord, and know that all power and every power and authority which they now have been chosen by you, and you have chosen them individually to be the leaders of this great city. So we give you honor and praise as we now proceed in this meeting. For it is in the name of our most precious Heavenly Father we pray. Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. We have a guest presentation. Actually, we have just one on auto attendant. Who's in charge? Major Williams, you going to introduce?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Mayor, if he's online, I'm not sure if he's here or not yet.
No, he's been delayed, but he will be here.
Greg Williams, I'm of the Logistical Support Division. One of the units communications with me today is Hassan Al-Rubay. He works for the Mid-America Regional Council. We're going to give a quick update on some new technology that we've implemented and some available with regard to 911. I'll let Hassan start.
Would you turn up the microphone for these people just a little, please?
Are we good?
Much
Okay.
better, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Hassan Al-Rubay. I'm Technical Services Director for the Public Safety Program at Mid-America Regional Council. And we've got 3 items we're going to talk about. First being automated abandoned callback. So this feature, if a citizen were to hang up before a call taker will answer the phone, will automatically call them back, ask them, do they still need assistance? If they do, press 1. If they don't, press 3. If they press 1, the call goes back into queue for the next available call taker. So that's been in place now for 2 weeks, and my laptop died, so I've got to pull this up on my phone, but we've got 5,800 callbacks so far that the system has made, so that's 5,800 calls that a human did not have to make. So as you can tell, that's a big number. That's not insignificant. Additionally,
Let me interrupt just a second.
Sure.
Is that helping? We've got people here. Is it helping? Yes. Okay. I just want a little verification. Thank you. You go right ahead.
I apologize. Like I said, my laptop died, so I'm going to pull up my OneNote on my phone. Well, I pulled some additional numbers as well, so here we go. Okay. So out of those 5,836 calls that were called back, 948 of those people indicated, yes, they still needed help, and they went back into queue. But 1,200 people said, no, I don't need help anymore. So maybe they realized multiple people had called, and they no longer needed assistance, or maybe it was something they just decided wasn't really an emergency. You know, we'll never know. But those are some early numbers on the system. Like, as I said, it's only been implemented now for a couple of weeks. Once we have more time with it, we'll be able to do some better data analysis of the real effects on call volume and queues. The next thing we have to talk about is queue selector, or as it's been referred to as auto attendant. So we've worked with Motorola on implementing the solution. Motorola came out, we did some system configuration with them, went over how the system works. We got everything configured, so we are in a place now where we are able to implement the solution if Kansas City, Missouri Police Department directs us to do so. The other part of queue selector was system selector. So I don't know if you remember before when I was here, we talked about the 911 system being a system of systems with PD on one system, fire on another, and to implement this queue selector solution, they need to be on the same system. So system selector is now available as well, which would alleviate some of our concerns with survivability with them being on the same system. I won't go deep in the weeds on the technical on that.
Please don't.
But that's now available as well. Neither one of these have been implemented yet. As I said, we're waiting for PD to tell us that, yes, this is something we want to proceed with. It is something that's disruptive to operations, so we don't want to do it until we know for sure that it's something that the PD wants to move forward with. And I'll let you take over from here.
I'll also say we appreciate that we don't want disruption any more than we already have. Right now, the communications unit is at South Patrol while they're getting their new CAD system installed here. So they've got a lot to deal with right now. So one more thing might be too much.
Are there any questions just about auto attendant? I'm sorry, abandoned callback before I go into auto attendant?
One, yes. So 5,800, 948 of those were, yes, they needed emergency assistance, 1,300 and some. What's the difference? What were
So
the others?
if they don't respond, it goes back into queue. So then we would have a 911 call taker would have to actually go back. Oh,
Actually, so if
sorry.
So there's tons of scenarios that play out. So if the first time they say, yes, I want to go back into queue, they'll go back into queue. But if they then hang up again after waiting in queue, then the call takers have to do a manual callback like they did previously. If the system will call, and if there's no answer, it'll attempt to call again. It'll place 2 calls. And if there's no response to those 2 calls, then the call is released, is how it's currently configured. So there's options with this, but that's the current configuration. That's kind of the default configuration that Motorola recommends. So there were 2,699 calls that ended with no response from the caller. So either the system got voicemail or the system, the caller did pick up, but just hung up on it. They heard a recorded message and just hung up. We'll never know. There's no recording of that. But I've got a full breakdown of all the numbers. If you guys are interested in that, we can send it over.
I'd be curious to see it. Yeah.
Sure.
And we made some adjustments already we were testing it out after we went live. Some minor things like it started so quick, it would call you back immediately, you pick it up, it was only about three words deep, so you lost the very beginning. We fixed that immediately. So this is kind of a fluid thing that we're kind of checking. I'm sure we'll make tweaks as we go on, but right now I believe everybody has said that it's good, it helps. So we believe that it will reduce our call volume whole time. How much is yet to be seen.
Great, thank you.
Have we heard anything as far as fire on it yet? Have they been?
So with regard to, that's probably more of an
Seen this?
auto attendant.
Okay.
Because if we do the auto attendant, then they would have to have a abandoned callback directly themselves. Right now, it's only on our system because we basically triage all the phone calls. So I'll talk about auto attendant. There were some questions recently that we had. So I want to thank Mark, Hassan, Eric. They've done a phenomenal job of getting this ready. They're always, no matter what issue we have, they're there to assist. So let me thank you for that. Auto attendant, I talked with APCO, which is the Association of Public Safety Communications, and NENA, the National Emergency Number Association. Those two organizations primarily deal with communications. NENA is the one that actually has the recommendation for the 15% or 9% of the time, 15 seconds, 9% of the time. They're the ones that set that standard. Both they recommend that the auto attendant feature is not used in emergency 911. It's not a good business practice. Think of it, I call it 911 phone tree because that's what it is. So they're against using it. I talked with Motorola, the director in the region. They have over 1,000 PSAPs, which are call centers throughout the nation that they actually use the Vesta system on. Not one in the country that they operate uses an auto attendant for emergency operations. They use it for the administrative lines. So that's something to consider. For us right now, I've talked to Fire, over the course of 5 years, I believe it's $12 million that would cost them to implement auto attendant. They're against it because their staffing currently would not be able to handle it. So if you think about it, traffic accident, we might get 3-5 calls on just a normal traffic accident. We triage all those calls, and fire gets 1 for that. So if you look at our numbers, about 12% of our calls come in for fire-related calls. That's about a little over 100,000 calls a year that we get for fire, but we only contact them roughly 40,000 times, which means that other 60,000 are probably duplicate calls with regard to the incident that occurs. And the traffic accident is just the easiest one, but shootings when they need medical, which we also get dispatched on, but medical emergencies, somebody having a heart attack, we'll get multiple calls for that sometimes. So we believe, both fire and my staff and I believe, that implementing auto attendant at this time would probably increase the call wait time for those reasons. It also could create some loops if they're on hold. So then if their staffing's not able to answer the call when it goes to them, and we're at critical staffing, then that person hangs up, then calls police, and they're going to hit police that time, or vice versa, trying to get through to somebody. Now you're just you're creating a loop of calls. I can't say that is 100%, but we need to fix the staffing issue, and we're focused on that right now. If we can get staffing to a level where it's appropriate, we won't need auto attendant. We're trying to do technology to correct an issue we have, and I think it could make it worse.
Okay. But you can also use auto attendant for our non-emergency line.
Absolutely.
And we're not doing that right now? Okay.
We are not. I did pull some numbers with regard. Surprisingly, we don't transfer a lot of calls from our non-emergency number. So we did about,
I don't need the numbers. I just
we don't do
wanted to understand what we're doing.
but we can do that, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions?
If we were to consider that, it occurs to me that perhaps there would need to be some kind of communication plan or something that we could put on the website or something so the public would know that a new feature for the non-emergency numbers is being installed, just to generate that awareness. It's just something to think about.
Correct. It's kind of like what we did with abandoned callback. We did a week of media trying to get that out there. I will tell you, on our non-emergency, like 311, I thought, it'd be great for 311. We don't get many 311 calls. I mean, a handful a year. I think that's already, people know to call 311 directly, or we're telling them when they get there to call 311. So we didn't get we didn't have a lot. So at first I thought, this would be great for an admin line. I'm not for sure, but it's something we can do.
Any other?
I have a question. The abandoned callback feature, 2 weeks in, it would be really interesting to see what efficiencies that drives into the operations for emergency 911 calls. And because resources were making all those calls manually, is that correct?
Correct.
So I think there's an opportunity there to see efficiencies gained from both resources and, quite honestly, service to citizens. Those who, for some reason, did not call back, but are receiving a call back and really needed assistance or help.
I believe last year was a little over 100,000 calls that went into the abandoned call, or went into the callback queue that we call each one back at least once.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation. And Councilman Rea is gone today, so we are not going to have a city council presentation. So we moved directly to our chief.
Good morning. Welcome, Commissioner Romius.
Thank you very much, Chief.
I'm thankful for your appointment, and I look forward to your leadership on the board. Last month, I attended the KC United for Public Safety Symposium. It was a 2-day symposium. I talked about it last month, bringing stakeholders together to discuss a collective ways to address violent crime. This past Friday, I attended KC United. It was part 2. Where we discussed our commitment and our action plans to implement a 10-point collective plan with KC 360 and the Empowerment Network. During my words that day, I expressed the commitment of KCPD to these efforts and discussed ways we are already implementing action in the prevention, intervention, and enforcement of violent crime. I closed my presentation in acknowledging the recent violent crime involving child victims, reinforcing that the call for action that was made there that day is even more urgent. I'm hopeful that the actions of the collective, leading the collective efforts, will lead to a healthier, safer Kansas City. I believe that we can be successful as a city. It just takes everyone to come together with a common goal of working together, and that goes all in line with that citywide approach to violent crime, that if a life is taken by violence in our city, everyone should be concerned and ask themselves what we can do as a collective to address that. Today, you all will be requested to adopt the fiscal year 2024-25 budget. It's important to acknowledge the great progress we have all made in collaborating on this year's budget. If the mayor was here, I would thank the mayor, the city council, city finance, KCPD fiscal division, executive services bureau, FOP, and all involved in this process. It has definitely been the collaborative process that it should be, and we are at a good point with our budget this year. I am appreciative of the importance of public safety being reflected in this year's budget. It really, really means a lot. So with that, if you have any questions for me, I just wanted to make sure I hit on the budget and also discussed that progress that we are having with all of the stakeholders in Kansas City, working collectively to address our violent crime.
Thank you. I want to thank you for your leadership in having our department and the city council work together. I have had great response from many different members of the city council, how much they appreciated the information that they received. They received it early. Their questions were answered. All that's a big help. So thank you for your leadership on that. And keep it up, because we need to do that every year.
Yes. And it starts tomorrow.
Okay.
Again.
All right. Doug Niemeyer, Colonel Niemeyer.
Good morning. My items will be under tab A, but you can follow along with the presentation. I first want to start, and you probably noticed in the last few months, I try to start with a unit that's worked really hard. I mean, all of our units worked very hard, but to highlight some of the events that happen throughout a month or even to this point of the year. But our assault squad, we talk about violent crime, we talk about homicides a lot, but the assault squad consists of 2 sergeants and 12 detectives. In your board book, you'll see in the notable events, I'll just point out one of the cases. We had a case where a gentleman randomly shot
Move the microphone toward you.
a individual, then proceeded to another part of our city and randomly shot another individual. Officers of ESON were able to pick up that car after the detectives had described the suspect vehicle. They pursued that vehicle and was able to get that person in custody. That individual was actually out on parole for the same sort of event. After the case was filed, they charged that individual with first-degree assault, ACA, unlawful use of weapon, unlawful possession of weapon, resisting and fleeing officers, and he's still in custody. So, that was just one case. To this point so far this year, those assault squad detectives have worked 190 non-fatal shootings. Those 12 detectives and those 2 sergeants. So I really want to let the assault squad know. I know they work hard. I know they're out there. We a lot of times talk about the homicides, and which is very important to talk about, but the assault squad, there's been a few high-profile cases. The Crown Center case was worked by the assault squad. They helped with the parade as well. So I thank them. I thank their unit. I thank their commanders for all the work that they do.
We thank them too.
Next item is the blue sheet. This is as of year-to-date. Unfortunately, last night we had 2 homicides overnight. We've had, so far this year, 44 homicides. Of those homicides, we've cleared 17. Of those homicides, 8 from the previous years, for a total of 25 of the cases, for a clearance rate of 57%. In March, we had 12 homicides. As you can see, we had 12 homicides in March. So far, adding the 2 from last night, we've had 13 in April. That, again, total of 44 for the year. Breaking it down by division, we've had 7 in Center Zone, 10 in Metro, 18 in East, 3 in North, 4 in South, 0 in Shoal Creek. And I know the numbers add up to 42 because we still have 2 homicides where the victims were transported to a hospital, and we don't know exactly where those occurred. So we don't put it in a division's location because we don't know the exact location, so we don't place it in there. So when you add up the numbers, they add up to 42 instead of 44. This is our non-fatal shooting report. This was as of last Friday, April the 18th. As I said earlier, we've had 190 non-fatal shootings. That's compared to 137 at the same time last year. That's a 39% increase over last year. In the month of March, we had 51 non-fatal shootings, which was an increase of 42% compared to last year. During the month of March, we submitted a total of 328 cases. 252 of those cases were presented to Jackson County, 46 to Clay County, 30 to Platte County, and 0 to Cass County. And then I'd like to discuss about the Special Investigations Unit and kind of circle back from a topic that we had early in the year in January. I especially want to thank Major Buck, Captain Lamport, Sergeant Cramblett, all the detectives at our DEU admin unit. And what I'm going to discuss is overdoses, the fentanyl issues, and things of that nature. We've implemented some new protocols on how we respond to that, to overdose deaths. DEU admin is working closely now with our Violent Crimes Division. What happens is a call comes in from patrol. They say we have an overdose death. That comes in because it's a death to the Violent Crimes Division. They are immediately in contact with our DEU admin folks. They will respond to the scene of those. They work really closely with them and crime scene as well. They respond to the scenes. They collect evidence themselves, electronic evidence that's there and available, so they can get to work on it immediately. And then another thing that's happening is we're working close with the medical examiner's office because a lot of that has to come through the medical examiner's office. And as we well know, toxicology reports and many of those things can take up to a month to 2 months to get those reports back, just due to the volume. So I really wanted to express my thanks to the way we're handling those now and the immediate response by our DEU admin out to take over the scene from our violent crimes folks. And these numbers that I'm going to present to you are specifically, they're not department-wide, they're just the SID unit. These are in your board book as well, but I wanted to highlight some things on narcotics that have come to play. Just this year to date, compared to last year to date, so meaning January, February, March, we've recovered 13 pounds of cocaine as compared to 4 pounds the year before, which is a 259% increase. Methamphetamines, we've recovered 265 pounds compared to 103 pounds, which is a 158% increase. Fentanyl, we've recovered 37 pounds compared to 8 pounds, which is a 372% increase. And the firearms, we've recovered 73 as compared to 37, which is a 97% increase. Now, those numbers are not department-wide, that's just that Special Investigations Division's numbers. We have many more if you add in all of patrol and other units, but as again, I wanted to highlight Special Investigations Division's work.
To what do you attribute that increase?
Well, having worked there, it could be a multitude of things, correct? Where we have our detectives working. I will say, like, whenever I worked interdiction for 6 years, our interdiction squad, I think it was the day of the board meeting, I think I reported, they got a shipment. They interdicted a shipment of 8.8 pounds of fentanyl in one shipment and 20,000 pills. So working with our federal partners, working with information all over the country, Kansas City sits right in the middle of the country. We have narcotics that are shipped through here, and we also have them shipped to here. So they've done a good job of pinpointing that investigatively. So I would really like to attribute that to our folks and how they're doing their job. So and also we all know fentanyl is on the rise. It's on the rise nationwide. So I'm very excited to. I mean, you never want to say, hey, we've recovered 37 pounds, but that's 37 pounds that are not out there on the street, along with 20,000 pills and other things that harm everyone. As you know, we've talked about it before. Fentanyl doesn't have a name, a race, an age, any of that. So, again, thank you to them. They've done a really good job so far during the course of this year of recovering narcotics. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is two things. One, I'd like to also thank, I was going to do a presentation on property crimes. It happened right there. I think Commissioner Kramer is well aware of what happened with Metro Property Crimes, and they took a lead on a theft of a motorcycle and some other items, and they've progressed with that investigation, and they did a really good job on that. But I lastly want to say thank you to the Royals, the Kansas City Royals. On opening day this year, the Royals recognized, the victims of the parade shooting. They also recognized members of the police department, the folks who investigated that, people who were the very first responders on the scene at the parade, the fire department, EMS, the medical staff in the tent. So just wanted to take a quick second to thank the Kansas City Royals for doing that for our employees. With that, should you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So I had a question. I realize the shootings and everything have gone up. Are we seeing more gangs involved, or you think it's more centered around the drugs because that's gone up? And I mean, any particulars in that? And I know I want to say all of our K-9 units are amazing, because I tracked last year, one of our officers tracked what his dog had taken off the street, and it was over $2.5 million street value in drugs, and that was one dog. So it makes you think, what are we missing? And like you said, we're doing great at discovering this stuff, but I mean, are you guys seeing more gangs out there?
I
do you
think, and I'm actually kind of, I think he may refer to it, Colonel Maben may refer to it, but, I don't know that I would classify it as a gang, but more like we call it group violence. I think you guys have heard about focused deterrence, and we're ready with focused deterrence and group violence. And, when I first came on this job, we talked a lot about gangs. Now we talk about more group violence, and there is group violence, and you can put your hand on certain groups that are surrounded by that, not just homicides, but non-fatal shootings. So without pinpointing, I don't know that I would classify it all as that way, because unfortunately, we have seen already this year some random. We may have group violence happening, and a random person is hit by their gunfire where they're shooting at each other, and someone random gets hit. So you could still classify that as group violence, but the victim truly isn't part of that. So if that answers your question, and to answer your second part, the dogs, amazing. Our canines in the drug unit and all of our canine unit is doing an amazing job at what they do. Thank you.
Colonel Maben?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My information is under tab B in your books, but you can follow along on your screen. I'll begin with the Patrol Bureau updates and notable events. Then I'll cover the median response time report, and I'll conclude with the traffic summary. Starting with the Community Engagement Division. The Police Athletic League had a total of 1,672 visits during the month of March. This is the highest documented monthly attendance. The average number of daily visits was 76, again, highest on record. They also had 33 new enrollments. Lastly, PAL's winter basketball season wrapped up in early March. They had 2 teams this year that competed, a 12 and under team and a 10 and under team. Both teams competed in the league's postseason tournament, with the 10 and under team making it to the championship game played at the College Basketball Experience. Moving on to the Crisis Intervention Team. You may be familiar with Reserve Sergeant Sean Hess. He was instrumental in forming the unit and continues to serve his reserve time there. Last month, he was recognized by First Call, an organization that helps individuals impacted by substance use disorder, with a Lifetime Achievement Award for his work assisting people in crisis due to mental health and substance use. Special Operations. The tactical response teams handled 5 Operation 100s and executed 13 search warrants during the reporting period. They also handled 2 static displays and 1 color guard duty. The teams provided 3 active shooter presentations to local businesses, and they also participated in unit-wide medical training on wound packing and tourniquet use, as well as scenario-based training involving hostage rescue. The K-9 section responded to 98 calls for service and had 21 deployments. They conducted bomb sweeps for the St. Patrick's Day Parade and opening day at the K. They also conducted demonstrations for the Boy Scouts at Nashua Elementary School and at Center High School. The unit also traveled to Houston, Texas, where they tested dogs and selected 2 new dogs, K-9 Finn and K-9 Carlo. It should be noted that one of these dogs was purchased through a donation from one of our auxiliary service volunteers. Bomb and arson section. They responded to multiple fire-related events during the reported period, including 5 arsons and 1 fire with an undetermined cause. They also responded to 3 bomb calls involving suspicious packages and recovered 3 explosive devices. Investigations are ongoing for the fire-related events and the bomb recoveries. Helicopter section flew 91 hours and responded to 144 calls for service, of which they were first on scene 47 times. They also tracked 6 vehicles that refused to stop for officers, following and providing updates to ground personnel. This resulted in numerous parties being taken into custody without a pursuit. They also assisted our investigations units by flying 17 surveillance missions. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention 2 major events that were held in Kansas City during March. First, the women's and men's Big 12 basketball tournaments, which were held at T-Mobile Arena. And then there was the 50th annual St. Patrick's Day Parade. Hundreds of department members worked these events, and both went off without incident. I'd also like to thank Jackson County Sheriff Darrell Forte, Kansas City, Kansas Police Chief Carl Oakman, and Special Agent in Charge Steve Cyrus of the FBI, who sent their folks to help us during the parade. And Lee Summit Police Chief Travis Forbes, who had his tactical response teams on standby just in case there was an Operation 100 in our city, because our tactical response teams were all working the parade. Here's March's median response time report. Median response time for priority 1 calls was 8 minutes and 24 seconds. That's a 23-second increase compared to February. The median response time for priority 2 calls was approximately 10 minutes and 30 seconds. That's a 21-second increase compared to February. And the average 911 hold time for March was 33 seconds, an 8-second increase compared to the previous month. Traffic Division. From the beginning of the year through the end of March, there were 24 fatal car crashes with 29 people killed. 8 fatal crashes occurred during the month of March with a total of 10 deaths. 4 are solved and 4 are solved with case files will be presented, once all the evidence comes back. And then the 4 remaining crashes were exceptionally cleared with the death of the culpable party. So the driver was killed. Now, if you give me just a few moments, I'd like to provide a little more context regarding this year's fatal car crashes. As of April 16, there had been 29 fatal crashes with 34 victims this year. Of those 34 victims, 18 were drivers and 7 were passenger in a car, truck, or SUV. 5 victims were pedestrians, and 3 victims were on a motorcycle, mini bike, or ATV type of vehicle. And 1 victim was riding a bicycle, and 1 was riding an electric scooter. So here's the part that immediately stood out. Of the 25 victims who were in vehicles that required seatbelt usage, only 2 were wearing seatbelts. So in other words, 23 victims, or 92%, were not buckled up. Furthermore, the bicyclist, mini bike operator, and ATV operator were not wearing helmets. So we know seatbelts save lives. And in an effort to get people to buckle up, the Traffic Division and our media unit are going to release a PSA campaign. We're also reaching out to local celebrities to see if they can help spread the message. But we're not just messaging. We're also conducting seatbelt enforcement operations and operations to combat dangerous driving. This is a top priority not only for the Traffic Division, but for the Patrol Bureau in general. Here's the DUI Wolfpack numbers for March.
I'm sorry, before you go on, I appreciate that, and I want you to continue that. When I started on this board 4 years and 4 months ago, one of the first things I heard is people don't wear seatbelts, and I thought we could make a difference, and we haven't. So I want you to do everything you can. I mean, it is the law, and you can't have a car recently that doesn't make all kinds of noise if you don't turn on your seatbelt, so they've disabled that. But yes, please work on that. It is so important.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Here's the DUI Wolfpack numbers for March. The DUI section conducted 11 Wolfpack operations with a combined total of 162 traffic stops. That's more than double the number of stops during the previous month. They issued 163 tickets and made 42 DUI arrests. There were an additional 66 DUI arrests not associated with Wolfpacks during the month, bringing the department total to 89. And last but not least, the Commercial Vehicle Enforcement section. They conducted a total of 257 commercial vehicle inspections during the month, noting 493 federal violations. They took 28 drivers out of service and 45 vehicles out of service. They also attended the Missouri Commercial Vehicle Safety Summit in Jefferson City, Missouri. This is an event where federal agencies, industry professionals, engineers, insurance companies, and nonprofits all come together to reduce the number and severity of commercial vehicle crashes on our roads and highways. That concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, I want to second President Dean's comments as to seatbelt enforcement. I do think enforcement is part of the issues. In a prior meeting, we had the chance to talk about not just accidents, but also some of the causes and things we can do to reduce them. You noted excessive speed as part of lots of them as well. I happened to be in New Orleans this last weekend and was standing on the street and also saw somebody just fly by me. It's a problem we see in many American cities. The city of St. Louis has reevaluated bringing back red light cameras. I think they have also tried to address hiring numbers, but recognizing ongoing staffing concerns as we face. I think that that was at least something they looked at with a few changes, adjusting to Missouri law, requiring officers to look at the video, matching the driver's picture with the vehicle itself and beyond. Do you have any viewpoints, or does the department have any viewpoints as to other alternative tools that would help or support in areas of enforcement, particularly when we continue to deal with speeding and its role in so many accidents and injuries in our community?
We can definitely take a look at that particular, red light camera, but also just in terms of deployment strategy, we're trying to get our traffic enforcement officers freed up so that they can go to the high crash areas, so they can be out on the highways and conduct speeding and enforcement. Moving into the summer, we also have plans where we're aggressively trying to combat, sideshow activity and street racing activity. We also have an entertainment plan, during the summer months where we engage the patrol divisions outside of traffic, along with some specialized units to flood the streets. And so from a staffing and just a deployment strategy, we are aggressively pursuing that. But we'd be happy to look at some other maybe technological tools that we can use to try to combat it too.
Thank you.
Well, maybe just to follow up on the mayor's comment, and that was the question that I was going to raise. And certainly do not want to dilute the message regarding seatbelts because the data is very compelling. But when we look at the crash statistics from March, 5 of the 7 had high rate of speed as a contributing factor to those fatalities. And so it does cause us to want to question what else can we be doing, because it seems like rate of speed, perhaps second only to failure to wear a seatbelt, is a significant contributor. And whether it's the red light cameras or other strategies that we could look at to address the high rate of speed seems to be something that we should have a focus on.
I agree. Thank you.
In your report, you also mentioned a first responder exploration course that has been taught at some of the high schools, and the Kansas City Public Schools have expressed an interest in that. I want to encourage you to aggressively take advantage of being able to do that, because if you can get into the high schools and let them understand all the different things that our first responders, the call takers, the dispatchers, the officers, everything, I think it'll help us in our recruiting. And if nothing else, it'll give them a respect for our department and the work that we do. So please continue to explore that.
Yes, we're excited about that, and I couldn't say it better myself. Yep, we're excited about that program. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may add one other comment, because I believe this is the point where it's appropriate. Many were concerned, had some fears as related to mass events that we had in the month of March. You mentioned not just the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which had much discussion following our February incident, but also the Big 12 tournament, NCAA wrestling, which really seemed to bring everybody to Kansas City. And of course, you mentioned a few other events. I want to commend your Bureau and all of the department for outstanding work in connection with it. Many of us asked or answered a lot of questions about being ready. I think the department was very ready for all of those major events, particularly in the core of our city. And I think the department acquitted itself well and largely was without incident at any major events that we had this spring. We hope to continue that in the warmer weather months, but thank you for at least the start and the cooperation you made there. Thank you also for acknowledging some of our mutual aid agencies and others who were part of it. But I want to thank you and the chief for all the work in connection with that.
Thank you.
Well, and several of the mutual aid agencies that you mentioned were trained by KCPD. Thank you very much. Colonel Ortiz?
Good morning, Commissioners. My information is under tab C in your books. Our law enforcement current strength is 1,086 police officers, 37 police officers candidates, and 511 professional staff members. In terms of law enforcement hiring, we have 29 candidates in the process of possible eligibility. We have one confirmed candidate for the 182nd class, which starts June 17th. We have 7 candidates pending jobs and 3 lateral candidates. Communications unit. We hire 6 members and have 1 job offer pending and 5 members in the process of possible eligibility. Our upcoming law enforcement testing dates will be on April 27th, and we're excited to see that 46 candidates already sign up for.
46 for our department.
Yes, for the physical ability test on Saturday.
We probably owe a thank you note to the city council for our budget.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mary. Thank you. So 46, and we still have a few days left.
Great, that's
So
great.
we're still looking forward to having a few more in there. So we're excited to see that. Our next testing date will be on the 23rd, May 23rd, June 27th, and July 27th. And of course, all this testing is taking place in our Regional Police Academy. I want to remind everyone that KCPD, our department, is offering many opportunities, not only in law enforcement. We encourage anyone to visit our website, kcpd.org/careers. They'll find many opportunities in there to apply. The Wellness Unit continues doing an excellent job with our members, especially in their most difficult times, and we appreciate the work and the countless hours that they dedicate to our members during their most difficult times, so we thank them. Lastly, we're actively engaging our community through recruitment. As you can see, we have different events going on between now and May, and we're looking forward to seeing and meeting new personnel or new people that want to join our police department. Come and apply and see us, and we're looking forward to it. Unless anybody else has any questions.
Any questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can I ask you to go back maybe 5 slides or so with the city skyline? Okay, just stop there. Out of respect to my colleague, Commissioner Whitaker, I do want to note his firm has built far more buildings since then, and we don't have all of them in, so we'll get you an updated picture soon.
I can probably help with that.
Just as a, an updated thing. I'm being facetious on that. I do want to take a moment, though. We talked briefly about the number of officers or individuals who are interested in sitting for tests. Can you talk about, I know we don't have all the numbers yet, but the impact of pay raises and even the announcement of pay raises on retention for the department as well? I think that is important for the public to understand to some extent.
Absolutely. It has a significant impact, I believe, and we believe so too. Captain Pinkerton has been doing a great job meeting with our FOP personnel, and they spoke to at least 20 different police officers that were ready to retire, but because of the salaries and the changes that you approved and that you helped us with, they decided to stay. So it's making a significant impact, and that's just the beginning of it.
And if I could just chime in here, there's been a lot of our members who were considering retirement before this most recent budget that includes the raises. I know FOP has went out, just like Colonel Ortiz said, has contacted a lot of those members that are eligible for retirement to explain to them the benefits of staying. But in addition to that, us having 46 people signed up to take the test to become police officer this weekend is a testament to what is to come here with the increase in the starting salary. We also have some laterals that are also considering our police department, because of course they're not going to be brought in at that starting rate, but in even better pay, just to come in and be a part of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. So it is, we are seeing some of the benefits already of the raises, the much-needed raises for our police officers.
Well, I will say, thank you all. This was, of course, the way we got those was much discussion with Deputy Chiefs McCollum and Young and you, Chief, and many others, and certainly this board and its requests. It is somewhat exciting for probably my first time as mayor to have people actually happy about a budget. at least in this area. Every now and then, there have been departments that have, but it's good to see that here. I'm very excited about retention. This board has heard every month for years now about how sometimes we're just trying our best to tread water, and it is very good to see that level of retention with, of course, more people interested. So hopefully that begins the turnaround in numbers that I know this city sorely needs, and certainly this department's been working towards. So thank you and everyone who was involved in that conversation.
Absolutely. I mentioned that earlier during my comments of my appreciation for the collaboration, for your leadership specifically, and our city council in coming in and having these conversations, openly discussing the budget, what needs are, and coming together and having this budget that is a reflection of the importance of public safety in our city. So thank you for that. We are definitely, we even have a couple members that have said, gosh darn it, I was going to retire next year, now I'm not going to. So it's really good, and not only on the compensation, but showing that importance and that value of our members and the work that they do, that means a lot too.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you.
Well, and I'd just like to chime in on that too, because I know this has been a major collaborative effort on everybody's parts, and chief and the mayor and city council, and I know the board, it's super important to us because we've been saying, you know, part of the violent crime numbers, we need more officers out there, we need to, you know, really get a hold of this, and it's so nice to be part of this and less stress this year. I mean, everybody's been so happy and so excited, and really look forward to the future and those numbers going up and building and that momentum taking off. And so glad to hear about the retention as well, because that was our big focus, is to keep people here and get a lot of new recruits. So I'm happy to see that, you know, we're on that road to success, and looking forward to now the crime numbers and everything as well. I think that's going to make major impact going forward. So thanks for all your hard work, Chief, and the mayor and everybody.
Anyone else? All right. Colonel McCollum, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor. All items for the Executive Services Bureau are located under tab D of your board book. Item A, adoption of fiscal year 2024-25 budget. I request the adoption of the annual budget to operate the police department for fiscal year 2024-25. The total budget for appropriations from all sources is $318,775,980 compared to $284,242,620 for fiscal year 2023-24. This budget recognizes appropriations of $294,340,607 from the city and $24,435,373 from other sources. In addition, existing appropriations will be reestablished for encumbrances deemed by the city to be continuing in nature and grants. The exact amount of the appropriations to be reestablished in fiscal year 2025 cannot be determined until after fiscal year 2023-24 books are closed. We are committed to continue our recruitment efforts and paying our members a competitive wage. Effective May 1st, 2024, the starting salary for a police officer will increase to $65,004 per year, adjusting the entire pay scale with an increased top step of $104,676. In addition, officers who are not at top step will receive a step increase on their anniversary. The budget also includes a 3.5% increase for all professional staff at the top, or an anniversary step increase for those not at top. Built into the budget is a one-time recruitment retention incentive of $2,500 for all professional staff employed before May 1st, 2024, as well as any professional staff hired between May 1st, 2024 and April 30th, 2025. I would like to finish by thanking Major Josh Heinen and Budget Manager Christine Ryder, along with her team, Sean Cawthon, Rona Hutchinson, and Darrell Woodward, for their hard work and long hours during the budget process. I've got to tell you, this was the smoothest and most collaborative process I've seen in years. In fact, it started January of last year when Chief Graves took over and made it a priority that the budget unit and all deputy chiefs would be over building those bridges and collaborating with the city, city council, and other city employees, especially those in the budget unit. And it's really paid off. I would like to thank Finance Director Tammy Queen and Budget Officer Krista Morrison, who worked with us to ensure funding was in the proper accounts prior to the city adopting the budget so that we can minimize the need for large budget transfers this fiscal year. I would also like to recognize the FOP, who we worked with closely as we developed this year's budget. This was truly a collaborative effort, and I can't thank these folks enough. So with that being said, unless you have any questions, I recommend the adoption of the fiscal year 2024-25 budget.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I may just say very briefly, and thank you for the acknowledgments that you have made. But something I recognize as somebody who's been in this seat for a few years, and many of us have, was, and I appreciated you noting it, the chief being still relatively new in this position, coming in with a very different approach. I think that was well received by many, and that is not lost on any of us who have been around here for a little while now. So thank you, ma'am.
And one last thing, I don't want to leave out the city council. We actually met with each and every city council member, and several of them numerous times, and that wasn't just us reaching out to them. A lot of them reached out to us for additional follow-up questions. So that really shows a relationship that's been building since Chief Graves took over. So I appreciate their working with us as well.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There are none.
Item B, TBL Systems Incorporated renewal. In cooperation with the city, our department obtained a mobile web electronic citation package and stop report solution from Thin Blue Line Solutions Incorporated, also known as TBL. This system has been in place for several years and is designed to improve officer safety, efficiency, speed, and accuracy. The annual subscription renewal for the period of May 1st, 2024 through April 30th, 2025 is $427,655.23. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next.
Item C, bid number 2023-11, ballistic protection vests renewal. On May 24th, 2022, the board approved a one-year contract to Ed Rohr Safety Products to provide ballistic protection vests. The original contract period was from June 1st, 2022 through May 31st, 2023, with an option to renew for 4 additional one-year periods. This will be the second renewal period. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval to renew a one-year contract with Ed Rohr Safety Products for an anticipated expenditure of $521,942.50.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item D.
If I may add a little context to the next several items in your board books. In January, the board accepted the KC Violent Crime Reduction Subaward passed through the Police Foundation of Kansas City from the Missouri Department of Public Safety. At the time, 6 projects related to the subaward to help reduce violent crime and strengthen police services were presented to the board and approved pending an ordinance to appropriate the funds being passed by the city. The City Council approved the appropriation, and items D through I are the formal requests for those purchases. So, with that being said, item D, new mobile command post. The department needs a new mobile command post for use during major events, critical incidents, or Operation 100s.
The current mobile command post is 26 years old, no longer has the necessary infrastructure to support updated technology, and is functionally antiquated for today's policing needs. The purchase of a new mobile command post will allow the department to be more effective and efficient during critical incidents, special events, parades, and the 2026 World Cup. Unless you have any questions, I request your approval to purchase a new mobile command post with Farber Specialty Vehicles for a total expenditure of $2,094,859, utilizing the KC Violent Crime Reduction Grant Funds secured by the Police Foundation of Kansas City.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item E, Lenco Bearcat Rescue Vehicle. The department needs to replace our existing Bearcat rescue vehicle with a newer and more advanced one. This invaluable resource is used during nearly every critical incident and all Operation 100s. The rescue vehicle gives officers and detectives the ability to safely negotiate and de-escalate potentially volatile situations. This vehicle also serves as a way to safely evacuate citizens out of harm's way. The current rescue vehicle is 15 years old, requires constant maintenance, and is becoming less reliable when needed, especially on short notice. Unless you have any questions, I request your approval to purchase a new Bearcat rescue vehicle from Lenco Armored Vehicles for a total expenditure of $323,000, utilizing the KC Violent Crime Reduction Grant Fund secured by the Police Foundation of Kansas City.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item F, Cisco 3750 switch replacement. The department has a critical need to replace many of our network switches that have reached the end of life or are close to it. The switches are an important piece of our network infrastructure as they allow our computers and landline phones to communicate both internally and externally, as well as send and receive information from the main data server. Unless you have any questions, I request your approval for the purchase of the Cisco 3750 switch replacements from Logicalis for a total expenditure of $565,673.38, utilizing the KC Violent Crime Reduction Grant Funds secured by the Police Foundation of Kansas City.
Is there a motion?
Moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item G, replacement of end-of-life wireless access points and the Identity Surface Engine upgrade. The department's wireless network and security authentication servers are at end of life and can no longer be upgraded or have security updates and patches applied. These end-of-life devices create a security risk on the wireless network, which is critical to the department's day-to-day operations. The wireless network provides connectivity to officers in the field for uploading their in-car video. It gives crime lab personnel the ability to move about the lab without losing connectivity and the capability to push out updates to the police radios. Unless you have any questions, I request your approval for the purchase of replacement wireless access points for the upgrade to the Identity Service Engine from Logicalis for a total expenditure of $311,737.17 using the KC Violent Crime Reduction Grant Fund secured by the Police Foundation of Kansas City.
Is there a motion? Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Item H, network firewall replacement. The department's network firewall is at its end of life and can no longer receive security updates or patches. The firewall protects against malware and cyber attacks, which are increasingly becoming more common. Without this replacement, the entire network is at risk. Meraki is the next generation firewall that can provide network security and reduce the risk of a cyber attack. Unless you have any questions, I request your approval for the purchase of the replacement firewalls from Logicalis for a total expenditure of $176,369.67, utilizing the KC Violent Crime Reduction Grant Fund secured by the Police Foundation of Kansas City.
Is there Motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is it there a second? Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item I, Power Protect DD 6400 backup unit additional storage. In November 2022, the department replaced the old Avamart data domain with a new PowerPoint Protect DD 6400 backup unit. At the time of the deployment of the unit, there was plenty of storage capability for the backups as well as room for growth. Since the deployment, the department has added additional servers to the backup. This has the current unit running at approximately 74% capacity, which limits the ability for much more growth. To accommodate the increased capacity needs, the department's information technology section believes adding 30 terabytes of storage should be adequate. Unless you have any questions, I request your approval to purchase 30 additional terabytes of storage space from Logicalis for a total expenditure of $120,075.40 utilizing the KC Violent Crime Reduction Grant Fund secured by the Police Foundation of Kansas City.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next.
Item J, Department Wireless Service Provider. In March 2023, the board awarded a one-year contract for the department's wireless service utilizing the National Association of State Procurement Officials contract. The department currently utilizes T-Mobile as our primary cell phone provider and a combination of T-Mobile and Verizon for wireless air card service. I recommend approval to renew for a one-year period the department's wireless service agreement utilizing the National Association of State Procurement Officials contract for the best pricing for an estimated expenditure of $450,572.04.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I just want to make a comment, Madam Chair. If this was related to AT&T, I would be recusing myself from the vote, but because it's not, I feel comfortable supporting the decision that your staff is making.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item K, Aviation Insurance Coverage Renewal. Lockton Insurance Company provided pricing for renewal of the helicopter hull physical damage and liability insurance. Chubb, the carrier selected, has an A++ rating. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval for the award of a one-year contract to provide aviation insurance from Lockton Insurance Company for an annual cost of $101,432 for the period of May 1st, 2024 through April 30th, 2025.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Item L, Blanket Building and Property Insurance. On April 25th, 2023, the board approved the award of a one-year contract renewal to provide blanket building and property insurance coverage to Lockton Companies Incorporated through Zurich, North America. During the past contract period, KCPD's property values remained constant at $131,860,375. By leveraging our values with the city's building coverage, Lockton Companies was able to obtain coverage for $308,875 annually. This is a 5% premium increase from the previous contract period and is in line with the market standard. Unless you have any questions, I request your approval to renew the department's blanket building and property insurance coverage from Lockton Companies for $308,875 from May 1st, 2024 through April 30th, 2025.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any discussion? Motion carries. Item M.
Almost through the alphabet, but item M, excess workers' compensation coverage renewal. The department retains a liability fund for workers' compensation, which is administered through the Office of General Counsel and managed by the company Thomas McGee Group. The Division of Workers' Compensation for the state of Missouri requires the police department to purchase excess workers' compensation insurance. Lockton Companies Incorporated provided renewal pricing of $209,898 per the City of Kansas City contract EV 2753. Midwest Employees Casualty Company, the carrier selected, has an A+ rating. Unless you have any questions, I request your approval to renew the department's excess workers' compensation coverage from Lockton Companies for $209,898 from May 1st, 2024 through April 30th, 2025.
Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Item N, 2024-25 Stop Violence Against Women, Kansas City Police Crime Lab Subaward. The department recently received the 2024-25 Stop Violence Against Women, Kansas City Police Crime Lab Subaward from the Missouri Department of Public Safety. The subaward employs 2 forensic examiners who will provide biological screening and/or analyze evidence from sexual assault or domestic violence cases. The subaward amount is $248,700.56 from January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2025. The subaward requires a local match of $117,035.51. This is our 23rd year of receiving funds from this grant. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval to accept this subaward.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion, I have a question. When it says the local matching, is that from our budget or from the city?
From us.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item O, Missouri Western Interdiction and Narcotics Task Force, also known as MOWIN. The department received a modified subaward for the MOWIN Task Force awarded for the period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. The funds are awarded to the department, the funds are awarded to the Department of Public Safety and pass through the Platte County Sheriff's Office to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. The original subaward of $242,757.65 was adopted by the board in October 2023. The department does not anticipate being able to utilize all of the overtime funding before the end of the subaward period, and therefore it is necessary for a modification. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval to deobligate $21,824.80 in dedicated overtime funds back to the Platte County Sheriff's Office for use by other MOWIN task force agencies.
Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right, this is the final budget transfer, and we received some of that by email. Some of it may
Yes.
not be on your computers, or in your book, I don't know.
If anybody needs copies, I can, okay. I request final budget transfers of appropriations to prepare for the closing of fiscal year 2023-24 and prevent accounts from going into a deficit. The transfer impacts the general fund, the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund, the Police Drug Enforcement Fund, and the Police Grants Fund. The general fund transfer moves $3,037,691 from personal services and $175,412 from commodities, totaling $3,213,103 to contractual services. The Public Safety Sales Tax Fund transfer moves $9,735 from capital outlay to contractual services. The Police Drug Enforcement Fund transfer moves $284,195 from contractual services and $187,108 from commodities, totaling $471,303 to personal services. The Police Grants Fund transfer moves $26,865 from commodities and $38,549 from capital outlay in the amounts of $10,675 to personal services and $54,739 to contractual services. Unless you have any questions, I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That completes my report. Unless you have any
Colonel
questions, thank you
McCollum.
very much.
That's great. Colonel Young?
May I just briefly, Madam Chair?
Sure.
The one thing we did share when approving the budget, and I discussed this in my State of the City speech through City Council and beyond, so we're heartened by the increase. We will note that this percentage of increase is likely unsustainable each year. So this is a roughly between 11 and 12% increase for a department of this size, long-term at the city budget. We'll all have to figure out, and you're not the only department, indeed not the only public safety department, that sees rather robust increases. The Colonel was very kind in representing to us his efforts and goals to work with our finance department and others to see where we can find long-term cost savings. This is not something particular to this department, but every public entity, actually at our city and around the country, to make sure that we can address these long-term concerns. We're also blessed with our taxpayers and others, particularly some of us who happen to live in Jackson County, where our taxes have gone up pretty mightily in recent years, that help fund some of these increases, recognizing that won't always be consistent too. We'll want to make sure we have long-term plans. So I thank you all for your upcoming work, particularly before the next budget cycle, and how we look to that and to ensure that we have that fiscal responsibility even in times of recession and other issues. So thank you.
Colonel Young?
Morning. You have 5 policies in front of you this morning for approval. I will say briefly, duty-related injuries, department forms, and academic selection all came up as part of a 5-year review and underwent very few small changes. Holiday compensation and regular days off came up intentionally so we could make some changes required to accommodate the 11-hour plan in patrol. And unless there are questions, I recommend approval.
So we're going to just take them all. First, let me ask, is there any question about any of the ones that are listed? All right, then is there a motion to approve these changes?
Move to approve the changes.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay. General Counsel. Mr. Weiner?
Good morning, Commissioners. I have 3 action items for you, and they're under tab F in your board book. The first item is an appeal by Jalon K. Halsey of the Private Officer Licensing Unit's revocation of his armed private security license. On February 26, 2024, Kansas City police officers were dispatched to a truck stop where Halsey worked private security. Halsey had detained a suspect, but only handcuffed one of the suspect's hands to Halsey's dominant hand. This left Halsey without access to his firearm, while the suspect had a pocket knife on the side of his free hand. The following day, February 27, 2024, Kansas City police officers again responded to the truck stop where Halsey worked. Halsey believed he had witnessed a shoplifter on camera, demanded to search her bag, got into an altercation with the shopper, then eventually handcuffed only one of her wrists and dragged her across the store. Halsey's actions were in violation of the Code of State Regulations 17 CSR 10-2.060-8I. On March 8, 2024, the Private Officer Licensing Unit revoked Halsey's license. If you have any questions, Manager Tammy Gallagher and I are happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, the Private Officer Licensing Unit recommends upholding the revocation of this license.
Is there a motion?
Move to uphold the revocation.
Any,
I did have a couple questions.
second, let's do a second.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded that you uphold. Any discussion? Commissioner Kramer?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how long has he been employed for this company? And was there any incidents prior to these two? And no, okay. And that was just May 4th last year? Okay. And then is there training? I mean, does he go through training by the company and us? Okay. They just make sure they're qualified. That's what I was wondering.
Any other discussion?
I will reiterate my question, and it's maybe for another time, but as someone who talks to Colonel McCollum all the time about expenses and how do we save them, I continue from a liability perspective to wonder about our presence in this area. I can't help but think, knowing some of the enterprising plaintiffs' lawyers in our city, and Commissioner Dean probably knows more of them than I, that even our official act of giving them some licensure, and granted, here, I think this situation will likely get to the right result of revoking it, but it gives me some liability-like concern of which we take on for our officers for any number of reasons. To Commissioner Kramer's point, we train them, we go through a lot of work to make sure they're ones that frankly we want to stand up for in their actions. Whereas you've got these characters that seem to go through far less, with no disrespect to the process we use. They're not officers, and they're not our officers. And so at some point, and perhaps more appropriate in a closed session discussion, understanding why we continue to even be in this business is something that I would love to know, because frankly, if it's what we're choosing to write checks on in years later, I'd much rather it be a bunch of officers perhaps rather than someone who was able to get a private security license and handcuffs themselves to putative shoplifters and all types of things. But that's just a chat and a question for another time.
Well, and I can't help but wonder if he did have more proper training from us, that maybe this wouldn't have happened, and he would still have a job. So that was my question.
Any more discussion? Yes, that's true.
Say
You're
that
right.
again, I'm sorry.
She said, I think the mayor's point is a lawyer can still sue us for giving him a private officer's license. And that's what he's worried about. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for covering that first.
But you're right.
Yeah.
They're required, the company is required to be responsible for the acts and omissions of their employees. And we're not required to train him at all, Dawn. We don't do any training of them.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
And we would be happy to provide more information on this in closed session.
Thank you.
Yeah, some legal advice. All right, we've got a motion and a second to affirm the denial of the license. Is, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. All right, we've denied the license. The second one, under tab B, Duke.
Yes. The second item I have is an appeal by Stephen C. Duke of the private officer licensing unit's denial of his application for an armed private security license. On March 5th, 2024, Duke applied for an armed private security license. His application was denied, as in 1995, Duke resigned from a law enforcement agency while under investigation and did not disclose this on his application. 17 CSR 10-2.050.3L states that an applicant shall not make any false statements in connection with an application, and 17 CSR 10-2.050.3P states that being terminated from or resigning under investigation or threat of discharge from a department shall make an individual ineligible for a license, but they may appeal to the board. On March 11th, 2024, the private officer licensing unit denied this application. If you have any questions, Manager Gallagher and I are happy to try to answer them.
All right, so if I understand it, he applied, and 29 years earlier, he didn't disclose that he had, and he explains in his letter that he didn't understand that because he had already resigned. So as far as we know, he hasn't done anything else in the last 29 years, right?
That's our understanding as well.
All right. And you did a check, right? Okay. Is there a motion on Private Officer Duke?
I move we overturn the denial.
All right, the motion's Motion's been made to overturn the denial. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Item C,
Third item is an appeal by David Johnson III for his application for an unarmed private security license. On December 29, 2019, in Vineland, New Jersey, Johnson argued with his girlfriend and punched her once in the back of her head with a closed fist. On March 26, 2024, Johnson applied for an unarmed private security license and answered no when asked to list all arrests within the last 5 years. On March 27, 2024, Johnson pled guilty in Vineland, New Jersey City Municipal Court to the offense of offending to peace and good order. Johnson's actions were in violation of 17 CSR 10-2.050, 3, H, L, and O. On April 5, 2024, the Private Officer Licensing Unit denied this application. If you have any questions, Manager Gallagher and I are happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, the Private Officer Licensing Unit recommends upholding the denial of this application.
is there a motion?
Move to uphold the denial.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Merle Bennigan. Director Merle Bennigan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Chief and Command Staff, and those sitting in the gallery. I'm going to forego discussion of the first quarter statistics until next month. This meeting, we will be presenting our annual report. And just a couple of words before Karen comes forward. Every year when we do this, I am reminded of the privilege that I have to work with such a competent and dedicated staff in putting this together. It truly becomes laborious at times with some of the things that we deal with in trying to make sure that our statistics are accurate. And every year, Karen, she tells me, she says, this is my last year doing the annual report. You got to train somebody else. And at the same time, she always prepares to get it done. So to Karen, I just want to say thank you. She does a yeoman's job in putting together, and you'll see that the layout is different. It's very colorful. I was surprised. But along with that, I want to thank legal analyst Diane Mazzucato, who's seated at the rear of the room, who assisted in the compilation of the data and statistics, along with Office Coordinator Ora Rogers, Senior Legal Analyst Johnny Ann Crawford, and also Legal Analyst Tara Watley. Also, while I'm thanking individuals, I need to thank the members of the Internal Affairs Unit, Captain Michelle Hahn, Sergeant Huntington, and Sergeant Pete Cutcliffe, and all of the detectives with Internal Affairs, because they don't get the credit that they deserve in terms of doing these investigations as well. Also, the General Counsel, Nathan Wienert, for picking up the phone when I call for legal matters. Also, the staff of OGC, in particular, I want to thank Bethany Ruoff, who just sits at the table every month. But behind the scenes, she's making sure that the complaints that come into the board office are rerouted to the OCC and that we're able to respond to those in a reasonable amount of time. And last but certainly not least, the Chief Stacy Graves and the command staff, the colonels, and the entire department. When you look at it, some of the things that you see going on currently with oversight agencies, you don't see the level of cooperation and responsiveness that we enjoy here in Kansas City. And we would not be able to do the work that we do without that level of cooperation. So to everybody on the department, whether it's the training unit, research and development, whoever we call on for assistance, I just want to say thank you for all of your hard work in making this process a successful one. Are we perfect? Absolutely not, but we never claim to be. But what we are is one of the few oversight agencies in this country that are staffed by professional members whose sole mission is the successful review and disposition of these complaints against members of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. And in that way, we are very much unique. And anytime anyone wants to talk about the complaint process, how we do the work that we do, and how we get the job done, I'll be more than happy to do that and defend this process until the very end. So I've said enough, but I just wanted to say that to everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for all of the work that you do, and of course to the board for your support, your counsel, your correction, and all of those things. We want to thank you for that as well. But without further ado, I give you Senior Legal Analyst Karen Williams.
Thank you. And Karen, I've already told the director that I really liked this report, and I particularly liked the part at the beginning, the complaint process, and explaining in graphics how it works, because a lot of people don't understand the process, and this is a great example. It's an excellent report, but in all respects, but I particularly like that part.
Well, thank you. It's been a few years since I had gone through some of our fellow oversight agencies and tried to look for new ideas, because frankly, the old annual report was getting a little stale. And it was just kind of a matter of changing numbers and not too much excitement going on with it. So I did find several actually, that I liked, that were very colorful, very simplistic, very easy to read and easy to understand, and so that's what I modeled this year's off of. I'd also like to echo everything that Meryl just said about the cooperation and things like that. Before I get into the meat of the annual report, I'd just like to thank the department. At the end of March, Diane Mazzucato, myself, Ora Rogers, and Tiara Watley, we wrapped up attending, you all can tell me how many roll calls we attended, of every roll call for every station that has officers out on the streets. We talked to them about our mediation program, about conciliations, talked to the sergeants about conciliations and our expectations of that. And we're really focusing on mediations and conciliations because we feel that that is a faster and more thorough resolution to someone's complaint. And it's also a much more timely resolution to their complaint when they come to us. So investigations are great for certain things. They absolutely need to be done for certain things. But a lot of times it's just a matter of answering questions, of hearing concerns, of being able to talk to a supervisor or someone else besides the initial member that they came in contact with. And they walk away with a great understanding, I think, of police policy and procedure, of how the complaint process works, and of who they can call if they have a complaint down the road that's not necessarily starting with our office. So I just want to thank you for letting us come to those. It was a lot of very early mornings. For those of you who know me, I am not a morning person, so those 5 a.m. roll calls, I was there with 2 cups of coffee and some notes, and a big thanks for everybody who's out at that hour of the morning, and of course those who work the overnights while my head rests on my pillow at night. So I really appreciated that. I know Diane felt the same way about that. She's much more of a morning person than I am, so she made a lot more sense. I was telling people to dot their T's and cross their I's, and then I had to realize that's not the right way to say it. So on to the annual report. Last year we received 334 complaints. That's an increase from 2022, a fairly significant one, 24%. In 2022, we took in 269. As a side note that you'll see in our 2024 annual report when it comes out, and maybe Meryl has addressed this year with the reports, we've created another category for complaints. We've always had categories 1 through 6, our bias policing, discourtesy, force, harassment, conduct, and procedure. We've added a category 0, which means it is not involving the PD. And we've talked about our name is a bit of a misnomer, the Office of Community Complaints. We get things that should be sent to 311, that should be sent to the phone company, the power company, the gas company, other police departments. And so in an effort to track things a little bit more regularly and thoroughly, we've implemented this category 0, excuse me, that you now see on your monthly reports of complaints that are not involving the KCPD. So I would say a chunk of those 334 that we received last year, this year would be categorized as a category 0. And so there will be more of that coming out at the end. You'll see that increase as the year goes on, and then of course that'll be addressed in next year's annual report. Talking about mediations and conciliations, we handled more complaints by alternative means last year than we ever have before, 74.1% increase. So we handled a lot of them in-house, a lot of them through mediations and conciliations, and there is a page in there that talks about the numbers that we handled in that manner. Again, our improper procedure is still our primary category. When you think about it, every complaint has to do with procedure, one way or another. And then sometimes there's a subcategory or something like that. So those are followed by conduct, by excessive force, and then harassment usually are kind of our top three. Of 156 complaints were reviewed by Internal Affairs in 2023. Those consist of complaints that were filed in the latter half of 2022 and then most of last year. Of those, we sustained 12. We had 36 not sustained and 40 exonerated. Again, with the advent of the body cameras, they have made our lives so much easier in terms of seeing what actually happened. You'll also notice on that, along with those 88 that had the full investigations, there was also a fairly large percentage that had, I've lost my number, that were closed. 38 of those complaints were closed. And that's one of the things when we went out and we talked to the roll calls, a lot of officers don't realize that they may never know they received a complaint, because if we look at something and on its face it looks like it is a complaint, we'll send it over to Internal Affairs. But the first thing that they do is pull those body cams and the in-car cameras. If they look at that, they compare it to what's on the complaint, they maybe look at the reports, they will send it back to us and say, let's take a look at this. Because if there's no need for a full investigation because we can see what happened, then let's not expend the time and the money and frankly the stress for officers and complainants alike to go through that process. And so that's why we do have a rather large closed category this year.
Let me interrupt just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
So in that situation where you and others have looked at the videos and you've determined it's not a valid complaint, do you talk to the complainant?
They receive a letter with the outcome saying that we have reviewed it, and based on the allegations that you have made, there is no evidence that either it occurred or on the flip side, that it was proper, that what happened was in fact proper.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, our information is on there to contact myself or Merrill, should there be any questions along
Sure,
those.
so if they want to come downtown or wherever you are, I know where you are, but do they get to see the video? Okay, that's what I thought, that they are not.
Part of the state statute, so that's
Yeah.
considered.
The law doesn't allow it, okay. But you can tell them about it.
They can obtain it through a sunshine request and go through the department for that, but that's not something that we can provide them.
Okay.
So again, no need to conduct a full investigation on those. So the annual report, the back half of it is containing the full year of the quarterly reports we provide every month that shows kind of what the complaint was about and what the outcome was. But that, I tried to make it short and sweet this year, so I'll entertain any questions if you have any.
We don't have to approve this in any way, but are there any questions? Thank you. We appreciate your work. And obviously, those conciliations take time. So obviously, you all are working hard. You're not just keeping track of numbers. You are meeting and talking to a lot of people, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, I will say the lack of questions probably goes to the thoroughness and completeness of your annual report. It was very well done.
Well done.
Yes. Excellent job.
Director Bennigan, do you have anything else?
Nothing other than you heard her talk about that Category 0 and how we will explain it in next year's annual report. So I'll just take that as her early commitment to go ahead and doing next year's annual report. You heard it here. But I'll talk more about the Category 0 during the first quarter report for next month.
Okay. Very, very good try. Do we have public comments?
Yes, and we've got three. First is Bill Drummond. Is Mr. Drummond here?
Yes, he's not? Okay.
Please come up to the microphone, and then you'll have 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm the next commenter, not Bill Drummond.
Oh.
Okay.
Is, no, Bill, okay, Doug Schaefer would be the next one.
I'm Doug Schaefer, the Community Christian Church representative on the board of More Squared. More Squared is the sponsor of the lawsuit filed in federal court last month, which asks that this Board of Police Commissioners be dissolved because its existence violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. We already know by this department's own statistics that equal protection is not provided to black citizens of Kansas City. This is not surprising in the context of the law which gives the Missouri governor the power to appoint you as commissioners. You are in these chairs today by virtue of the power vested in the governor by the 1861 law passed with the intent to preserve slavery in Missouri. Kansas City's police governance, uniquely undemocratic in all of America, is the racist by design structure you have signed on to. We don't need better overseers. We need self-governance. We don't need more good apples with the courage to hold the bad apples in the department to account. We need a new barrel. This board and its former appointees have systematically failed to provide equal protection to Kansas City citizens. Your oversight is so poor that the last chief kept a convicted murderer on the payroll. Your most significant decisions are how many millions of Kansas City's tax dollars to spend on settlements for bad police behavior. But you do have the opportunity to make a lasting difference for the good of Kansas City. You might even be able to remove yourselves and your reputations as defendants in the federal lawsuit that names you as complicit in Missouri's most explicit example of structural racism. I urge you to resign as commissioners and say publicly to Governor Parson, "Let my people go."
Next is Ron Hunt.
Board President, Mayor, Ms. Romius, congratulations to our beautiful chief. And real quick, I just want to say, I don't know if y'all saw last week where the 11-year-old Courtney was kind of gunned down. My talking with my good friend, Deputy Chief Maven, you know, the first 48 hours is very important. It's very important. And the reason why I say that, when I heard about little Courtney, I had to instantly step into action. I don't know if any of y'all remember the Precious Doe, Erica Green. Alonzo Washington and I were really on that case. And here's where I'm going with this, Mayor and everybody else, is that we pay these programs a lot of money to fight crime. And I went to a couple of them, Councilwoman invited me. And, you know, I'm hearing the same thing that we heard way back in 95 and 94. Programs are good. It's good, Stacy, that, you know, you meet with stakeholders, you sit down, have coffee, and talk about it. But what I'm talking about is a hitting the streets all day, every day. When I went out to that shooting with that little girl, I got more information just by talking to residents. People want to talk. People are tired of crime. And I do this for free. For free. You ain't have to, you know, Aim for Peace, and all these other programs, you know, we're not getting the bang. I'm a data-driven guy. When I look at the crime data, and I look at the 3 years we've been knowing these people, giving these people our money, I don't see movement on the streets all day, every day. When a kid is being killed, it should be the #1 priority on the community, and we should see a mass marketing. I have a 9-year-old. A 9-year-old. I couldn't imagine letting my kid on a 6-year-old boy got killed a couple of days after that. And I really, I'm going to say this in closing, I really thank the homicide detectives. These guys are overwhelmed. I appreciate the city council giving our police officers raise. You need it. You really need it. But we have a problem. When it comes to kids, we should have a high marketing priority to get these people off the streets. These people are walking the streets today. So I just want to say that I really appreciate y'all. The crime is not high because of the police department, but people want to talk. And I say this lastly, I think the TIPS hotline, the Crime Commission, they gave me the flyers that I needed within 2 hours to hit the streets. And that's what I do, hit the streets. And I do it for free. For free. Mayor, we got people that would go out in the streets and hit the streets for free. So let's examine what we're doing with our money and I'm a data-driven guy. I have to evaluate these programs because I shouldn't be out there 24/7 hitting the streets. I don't get paid for it. And there's people that get paid 9 to 5 who sits up and just have a cup of coffee, meet on Thursdays, and just pat each other on the back.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
That's it.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the minutes of December 12, 2023. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now, March 19th, 2024. Motion?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Kenner.
Yes, it's time for board elections, so we need new candidates for president, vice president, and treasurer.
I nominate Dawn Kramer to be president, Tom Whitaker to be vice president, and Melanie, that's wrong. Madeline, I couldn't say your first name. Yeah, I knew it was wrong. You're right. How about Romeus? Is that part right? That's accurate. Commissioner Romeus to be treasurer. That's the slate I recommend. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made to elect that slate. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mayor Lucas?
Just a few things, and thank you all for being here. Occasionally, I have the opportunity to say controversial things. One of those times was actually in the summer of 2022. In both a board meeting and elsewhere, I had mentioned a return of the mounted patrol of the Kansas City Police Department. The rationale at the time were several. One, visibility, both in our neighborhoods and in community events, but also at major events, having that law enforcement presence. I believe the Mounted Patrol did great work for this department and for this city over years. At the time, it got opposition for any number of reasons, as many things often do. This is just me planting that seed once more. I think particularly as we are thinking about at least a moment of fiscal stability, recognizing I just told you not to spend all the money and too much more money over time, I really do think as we see repeat occurrences in entertainment districts on some weekends, as we see a need for ongoing engagement, I think the Mounted Patrol was an outstanding part of this department, and I would encourage us to try to evaluate a return of the Mounted Patrol as well. That's interesting point one no one was predicting. As to point two, there has been some discussion recently as to sanctuary cities and other such items, and Kansas City being one or not being one. It is my understanding from reading about them that that takes some determination by law enforcement to not enforce certain state and federal laws and policies. At no point have I ever heard this department to do the same, nor has this board ever discussed such a thing. Plainly, I don't think from this board that this city is a sanctuary city, nor do I think in any way that the Kansas City Police Department elects broadly not to enforce any types of laws that are on the books of the city, state, or our country. I make that clear only for those who might suggest otherwise. So that's my point two. Where am I even going next? Point three. I've had a chance to serve on this board for some time now. Most of my time has been with Commissioner Dean. It has been an opportunity to learn quite a bit. I am an attorney by training. I've been familiar with Commissioner Dean's reputation as a lawyer for some number of years. I've appreciated learning from her, particularly at times we have disagreed, and I want to thank her for her years of leadership and involvement in this position. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
I have to say, I agree with his suggestion about the Mounted Patrol. My favorite ride-along, and I was the attorney for the board at the time, and we wanted everybody to ride along, was with the Mounted Patrol in Swope Park. And it was a wonderful experience, and it was all very positive. I mean, kids in the park, families having picnics, it was great. I know it's not all picnics in the park when we use our Mounted Patrol, but they are very visible and are wonderful. I know they're expensive. I remember all that stuff. I do know we saved the tack when we lost our animals, but I would encourage you to at least think about it. It's wonderful. Commissioner Romius.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My comments today, this is my first meeting, and I will share with you that the presentations on what the men and women on your teams are doing and the impact they're making in the community has been phenomenal, and for me, it has truly been a learning experience. So I would just, I will admit in full candor, I had quite a few comments and quite a few questions, but for time, I said, let's just kind of hold them down a little bit. But learned a lot today, and I look forward to learning even more in the future, and I look forward to your leadership, Chief Graves, and the leadership of your team. So looking forward to the service, looking forward to the ride, and trying to help make Kansas City a safer place. And by any indication of the reports today, I want to also mention the community complaint report. I thought that was excellent, very well done. I think we're going in a good direction. Challenges will present themselves, but so will opportunities. So that concludes my reports. Looking forward to working with you all.
Commissioner Whitaker?
My remarks today are going to be based upon gratitude. First, thank you, Commissioner Romius, for agreeing to be part of this board. I look forward to working with you. Second, I want to, as the mayor did, also recognize Commissioner Dean. You've shown great leadership to this board, to this department, and in our city, but also personally, you've been a great mentor and counsel for me as I have joined this board. So thank you for your commitment and your leadership. And then finally, Chief Graves, thank you for your continued leadership. It's one thing to be able to recognize the women and men of the department and the great work that they do, but more the culture that they have. And so as we're out there trying to find new people to bring into our organization, emphasizing the great culture that we have here, I think will be an attraction. And thank you for also maintaining that your strategy of working with others in the community. You started your remarks about how you presented last Friday. Thank you for maintaining the messaging around working with others, KC360 and others, as we put effort behind the strategies that you have out there. And I think staying on point with that will be very helpful. So my gratitude goes to you. That's it, Madam President.
Commissioner Kramer?
I would like to say I'm honored and blessed to be part of this board and to work with all of you. And Commissioner Dean has been a great inspiration and mentor to me as well, and I appreciate all her help and quizzing her about questions and things and procedures. And of course, her law background has come in, very helpful to everybody, I think, on this board and this department. And we appreciate that with her expertise and her knowledge and professionalism. So thank you. And I'm just really honored today to be part of this board and be working with such wonderful people, because I know everybody on this board wants to make a difference and is very passionate about being here. And I think it really shows that, we care about the department, we care about all of you, and we appreciate all the work that you do for us and putting your lives on the line every day and making this department a great department and making Kansas City a great place to be. And as far as the mayor said with the Mounted Patrol, I'm totally on board with that, because I think that's such a great opportunity with all the big events we're coming up to start really looking at how do we make this work again? How do we fit it in budget? And I think also it brings the community and the kids and everybody closer as well, but makes an impact as far as what those horses can do and help with crowd control and everything, so. Chief, great job. Keep it up. Thank you. Appreciate everything, and all of you appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My turn. First, I want to welcome our newest commissioner. I'm very happy that she's here. I think you'll find the work challenging and rewarding. This board is made up of 5 individuals with unique talents, perspectives, and experience. We work together as one board to keep this city safe. It's been an honor for me to serve on this board and to work with all the people that make up this department. I'm resigning effective at 5 o'clock today. I want to thank the City Council for their cooperation and support, and the community for their cooperation and support of this department.
Thank you for your years, Karen.
There's no crying in police work. Or baseball, I can't remember which. Information items we don't have to discuss, so the next thing on our schedule was different scheduled meetings. I think what I need now, Chief, do you have something?
I'd like to speak out of turn, if I could, please.
You may.
Thank you for your dedication and service to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, the city of Kansas City, and I appreciate all of your appointments that you've had on the board as a police commissioner and also as the board attorney. I've appreciated your leadership. I will miss our weekly check-ins, and thank you for all that you've done for me in this position, and also your oversight and advocacy for this police department. Thank you very much.
It was my pleasure. It was an honor to serve with all of you.
I would also like to speak a little out of turn, too. I would like to thank you, Commissioner Dean. You've done an awesome job, and it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you over the last several years.
That's something from a lawyer. Of course, this lawyer talked to me, too. Thank you. Do I have a motion? A motion to, do you want to talk?
Madam Chair, I was going to present a motion to go into closed session.
Thank you.
Somebody's keeping it. Yeah, she's ready.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to go into closed session has been made and seconded. All those in favor say your name and your vote.
Lucas, aye.
Whitaker, aye.
Dean, aye.
Romeus, aye.
Kramer, aye.